Hey visionaries, get set for an eye-opening chat with Shaye Woodward, fun-loving relationship specialist and master coach, as we delve into the entrepreneurial spirit through the lens of ADHD. Shaye's going to share some game-changing truths and practical tips that turn perceived weaknesses into kingdom-building strengths. Prepare for some serious inspiration, all packed in this powerful conversation. Tune in and let's explore these remarkable journeys together. Let's go. So, okay, you were telling me that there are some tips and techniques that we can really do to help with planning for people with ADHD. I think this is so good. Could you share that again?
Absolutely. So part of the problem with ADHD is that we look at a list and we get told by people that a lot of people, because it's common, just make your task list, just do your task list. Okay, great. Now you have this ginormous list of 5,000 things that you've got to do. And you look at it and you're overwhelmed and you're like, I don't want to do any of it. So one aspect, find a planner that works for you. I usually don't use planners because after I buy them and use them for a couple times, it's too much. There's too many
Mm,
things on. So I had a friend suggest to me of getting just a plain blank bullet journal. And it's got the little dots on there because I like the dots, or you can do a grid or just plain blank. And
mm,
then I create my own planner. So I'll take one day and this side, I'll make this being my week, just my week. That's it. So I have each day listed out. This one I set up where it's AM here, PM here, and then over here is my task list. Okay. And I break it down. I have personal and then business. And the reason for that is because I don't want to take time to have to go through this big, ginormous list. Now, as you saw on there, I've got more than just a couple on there. That's because I'm used to it now. But don't pick more than 1 to 3 items, especially when you're first starting out, because the dopamine hit you get when you get the reward of checking it off and crossing it out, it's kind of like your brain's going, whoop,
mhm.
whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah, I got it done. Right.
I love
But if
it.
you're looking at this big master list, your brain's going, I only got one done. So throw the master list on the side in the back where you can refer to it. And you can keep adding to it when you want to, but that's not your focus for that week. And the reason I love putting it so that I have this side and each week I change it. So if I don't like how it looks, I'll change it to something else. So
Mm,
as you can see, this week was different. I get to be creative and I get to play, which is important for an ADHD brain.
love
But the
that.
nice thing is it's just that week. I keep it on my calendar on here too. I mean,
Mm,
let's be real. We really need to use those.
mm,
But that's my master. The master calendar is over there. The master list is over there. But this is what I look at every day. So that's one
yeah.
tip. It's really simple to use, to create, but you form it the way that it's, like eye candy to
What
you.
works for you. I love that. Just taking this blank
Exactly.
canvas and
Mhm.
creating something that works for you. But you, when you're dealing with, when you're not dealing with, when you're helping people, this is stuff that you help them actually create for themselves, right? Get an understanding
Right,
for what works for them and would help them do those kind of
right.
things as well. So see, that's really awesome. Um, I love the part where you talked about having the opportunity to be creative,
Mhm. Mhm.
having the ability to create what works for you in that. But that's so crucial. I mean, we need that. Everybody needs that,
Oh
um,
yeah.
to
Oh
have
yeah.
everything planned out and all that kind of stuff. But I can identify kind of with the overwhelm with the master list. So what you were saying is, go ahead because your brain is overactive. Go ahead and do a master list and write it all down, and then
Get it
go
out of your
back.
head.
Yeah, get it
Yeah.
out of your head and then go
Mhm.
back and choose the things that are important for you in that just in that week. So
Mhm.
you have a practice where you just go in, this is what's important for this week. I'm going to put it
Yes.
over here, nothing more, nothing less. The rest gets shut off. So you
Right.
know,
And you don't
yes,
have to look at it. You don't have
yeah,
to worry about it. And I'll even go even one further with it. How many of you end up putting paper somewhere and you're like, I don't know where it went?
yes,
I had it. I know it was right here. And now I can't find it. Well, for me, that was a real issue. Or I had cupboard after cupboard after cupboard full of papers. And I never went back and looked down because it was too much to go through.
yes.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I was like, okay, what's going to work for me? Well, I simply got an iPad, which, I know not everybody can do this, but a functioning tool that you can write on and be able to have it in one place. So I use my iPad for my note taking. Do I have it compartmentalized within it? Absolutely. But then I don't have to go through the filing cabinet and try and find it. So that's just
Yeah.
another tip for being able to organize yourself and keep it all in one spot instead of, oh, is it over there? Or wait, is it in that filing cabinet or is it in the closet? So it just kind of releases your brain from having to keep track of everything, which is part of the overstimulation, the
Oh,
overwhelm.
I
So
love that. Thank you. Thank you.
you're
That was
welcome.
a great tip. So thank you for that. Welcome, welcome everyone to the Kingdom Visionary Show, where we showcase dynamic women who are on a mission to change the trajectory of kingdom life and for other people. Women who are building legacy and who have a calling on their life. They're clear on that calling and they've set a trail blazing to make sure and to do everything they can to make sure that they answer that call on their life that God has placed on them. Today, we have Shaye Woodward. Woodward. I said it wrong. I'm so sorry already. So, and she, she is a dear friend of mine, and Shaye is going to talk to us about navigating life today through with individuals who have ADHD, which is a really big deal now. Not something that's talked about as much, I think, in Christian circles. I know a lot of people are suffering from that, but maybe not so much talking about that from a clinical standpoint. So Shaye is, I'm gonna let you give us your resume because I know it's quite extensive. You're pretty amazing. So
Well, thank
Shaye,
you.
you want to take it over and tell
Sure.
us about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Nicole, for letting me come in and talk about this. It is something that's not talked about very much in this aspect. And so I'm really excited to be able to have this chance with you, an opportunity. Um, as you said, my name is Shaye Woodward, and I am a relationship specialist and master certified coach. And my specialization is more towards dealing with ADHD. It's something that I have dealt with all my life, but wasn't diagnosed till later in life. And I have found that it's something that's become a passion for me. Our family is a family of 9 kids. We're a blended family, and we all, at some varying stages, have it dealing with the issue of ADHD. And so finding the ways to navigate life has been really a struggle for some of them, and some of them, they thrive with it. And so when I saw that, I just wanted to be able to say, what is the difference? What can we do for those out there that they struggle with it, or they want to have something different? They're not quite sure which way to go. And so it's something that we really are diving into. I'm really diving into. My husband's kind of along for the ride because he's a coach also, but he's more like, hey, that's your thing, go for it. So
Yeah.
but yeah, that's something that I've been working on pretty more intensively, I would say, over the last 3 years.
Mm.
And it's kind of just been part of my life, all my life, but diagnosed in my 30s. So it's something that we're starting to have some fun with, but at the same time, starting to be able to deal with some of those real serious issues that people do.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, so um, you're saying that you didn't come into really understanding and knowing that you had ADHD until you were in your 30s. So,
Yes,
so
yes.
tell me, what was it like before that? Like what, because it doesn't really, I'm sure you get things that you can do, and maybe, I don't know, that can lessen the effects and things like that, and I'm sure you'll go through those. So I'm assuming that in the first 30 years of your life, there was some serious stuff going on that you just didn't have a handle on, or not. How did
Right.
you come to know what was going on?
Well, long ago, as I jokingly say, of course, because, my age, I always look at myself and say, no, I'm not that age. I'm really younger than I think I am, or than I know I am, right?
I love
But
that.
when I was younger, we didn't really look at ADHD very much. In fact, we avoided it very much because of the fact that we knew that if we had a diagnosis for that, then we became labeled. Especially in school, you were considered the trouble kids, or you were considered like your lower intelligence, or things like that, which would make you feel like you're dumb or you're stupid, or there's no way that you could ever learn that stuff because you just don't have the capability. And so there was a lot of times growing up, especially when I got to high school, where I did feel very much like I was less than, that I didn't have that intelligence and there was no way that I was going to get it. So I just had to figure out how to deal with it. Uh, there was a lot of things that, looking back retrospectively, how I dealt with stuff makes sense now. Holding back and not really connecting with people, floating within groups instead of being like, this is my group of people that I hang out with, or just shying away from certain things or certain classes because there's that thought that I had of, there's no way I could do that. And then feeling like you're really out of place or that you're not good enough because you aren't attaining the grades that they want you to attain, or you're not understanding the processes of doing the testing and things like that, and testing itself. So as I grew up, I kind of just had my workarounds, figuring out how can I bluff through that, or how can I just kind of get through the day, you
Mm,
know?
mm,
And it was really a hard struggle because even coming out of high school, I will tell you that my grade point average was pretty bad. I mean, we're
mm.
talking like 2.9, I think. I can't
Yeah.
even remember what it
Yeah.
is, right? But then in college, I excelled. And so I think when I did that, I started to understand that I'm not broken. There's
Mm,
something different about me, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And so when we had the diagnosis when I was in my 30s, it's almost like all the dominoes fell and was like, oh, that makes sense. Now I understand why I'm doing that. And even then, from that point until just a couple of years ago, my symptoms, the ADHD symptoms, were all under control because I knew what to do for
mm,
me, right? And then we had a car accident, and that changed the whole perspective. And that's what really made me think, you know what, I need to dive into this more, because
mm.
now what was in control is no longer in control. And it's like
Sure.
stressful over here. And, it's kind of like being in that, the ball pit and all the balls are being thrown
Mm.
at you.
Okay.
So,
So tell me this. What are some symptoms for a person to know, where they can know that, okay, this is potentially ADHD and they need to get um maybe assessed and helped in that area? I'll ask that question first and I got some more.
okay. A lot of it is pretty common knowledge, like the distractibility.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how much do you have overwhelm? Do you have emotional regulation, where are you flying off the handle, or are you crying over not silly things, but other people would see it as silly things? Do you have an issue with time? Some people reference it as time blindness, but it's just, do you have a hard time understanding like 5 minutes and what really 5 minutes means? Understanding how your mind works is a huge component. But if you feel like you're kind of out of place and not fitting in exactly, maybe sit down and say, okay, these are some of the symptoms I'm noticing, and then gauge those symptoms, because some of it can go with multiple different things, but it is always important to go get assessed, because dealing it with an ADHD type of mind versus a different diagnosis can be different ways of dealing with it. But I would
Mm,
say the biggest thing is the distractibility, the emotional dysregulation, also being able to just completing tasks. That's a big
mm.
one. Do you have a lot of hobbies that are kind of started but not completed, things like that? So those are the things to kind of look for
Look for.
beginning. Mhm.
Oh, you said that was common, but there's probably about two or three in there that I did not know. For me, when I think about ADHD, I just think about people that can't focus.
Mhm.
For me, so I know that that's a big thing, and then I think I know that there's a lot of um loose lips when it comes to even using those words. People say my ADHD and they don't have ADHD. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's just become one of those things. Do you think that people speaking that way so commonly and like haphazard about ADHD has actually lessened in some way the I don't want to say the importance, but you know the kind of impact that that really does, almost cheapen what it is, for people who are actually going through that. Do you think that any of that is in play in our society now?
I do think that there is some of that. I mean, if we look at the internet or the social media and things like that, there's a lot of jokes about ADHD.
Hmm.
And it's, oh yeah, well, that must be my ADHD, or oh, blame it on the ADHD. and it makes fun of it a lot. Now, granted, let's understand that having ADHD is not who you are, but a lot of people pull that on themselves. So yeah, I do believe that that kind of adds to some of the,
Yeah.
the input within themselves. But I would say also the other part of it is understanding that they're ADHD people do have a lot of humor because that's how they deal with it. At the same time, they also have humor because they like to have fun. And again, there's a misconception of where the struggle is. So even in the humor, there is struggle. And being able to understand that, sitting in a job interview and you burst into tears, that's a struggle because there's a
Mm.
lot of high emotion. So how do you handle that? You know,
Yes. Yeah.
but yet some people be like, yeah, I'm sitting there bursting into tears, hee hee hee, and having
Mm.
fun with it. But it's to take some of that embarrassment away, pull it down, because they
Mm.
don't want people to see the one side of ADHD. So they
Mm.
just see the fun side. So I think it brings it down a little bit as far as what the struggles can be and how hard it is for some, because depending on the extreme of the diagnosis or the extreme of your symptoms,
Mm.
can depend on how much you're actually dealing with each day and in what
Yeah.
areas.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So I know you and your husband, you guys are business owners. And I know
Mhm.
you said you've been focusing on the whole ADHD part for the last 3 years, but I think combined between you and your husband, you have what, over 20 years of
Mhm.
experience with um, coaching with couples, right? And you do a lot with married couples, and particularly with people who may have one member having ADHD. That's your specialty within that kind of thing that you and your husband do. But I know you guys have done a lot of coaching for couples as well
Mhm.
in your business, and you guys have a book too. What's the name of the book?
It's called Winning the Human Race by Being the Best You.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a focus more on helping people to kind of find their identity of who they really are and why they're
Mm-hmm.
really here. What
Mm-hmm.
is helping them find their purpose in life.
Yes.
But it goes along again with any diagnosis that you're dealing with. You still have those components to look at for who you really are within here. You aren't your diagnosis. You are a daughter or son of God.
I
And
love
how
that.
do you find that? How do you pull that within you and remember where you came from?
Yeah, I love that. I love that you said, and you said that that's the second time you said that, and I don't want to skip over that you are not your diagnosis. So
Mhm.
not saying, yeah, you don't want to be ADHD. That's just something that is something that you deal with, right? And you have the
Mhm.
symptoms or whatever. I love that. That is so important because we are a child of God, right? That's what we are first and foremost, and we have to live through that lens versus, these other identities that are
Right.
trying to be put on us in life, that when we're going through life. But I love this. Okay, so want to move into
Mhm.
how this has affected you, positive, negative, doesn't matter. Just kind of give a little insight on being a business owner, because many of the people who are listening to this show, it's Kingdom Visionaries. So
Mhm.
we're appealing, our appealing crowd are people who have a love, passion, calling that God is putting on their life, right? Um,
Mhm.
so they're going to be in business in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right?
Mhm.
So how have you navigated having or dealing with ADHD symptoms while being a business owner?
That's a great question because there are moments where, in anything that we do, we're sitting there going, what were we thinking, right? My husband had a brick and mortar business, so to
Mhm,
speak, for about 30 years, and we just recently closed that down last year. But because of his ADHD and because of the fact that this is one of the most wonderful traits that you can have with ADHD is being able to think outside the box.
mm,
Because of that, he created a business from nothing to something.
mm,
And so that's probably one of the best things that I have been blessed with too, is being able to take something and think outside the box to create something or create a business or create a podcast or create whatever it is that we are intended to create at that time,
mhm,
have the capability of seeing it, visualizing it, and then finding those little steps that get us there. That's one of the biggest things with being a business owner is being able to think outside that box, look at what is possible, and then say, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm still going to keep open and looking for it.
Mm,
And we can set that in the background while we're doing other things. So they call them sometimes neurodivergent versus neurotypical, which means a normal brain and an ADHD brain. So with an ADHD brain, you can set that back on a shelf, but your brain is still processing it and going through it and saying, okay, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And then all of a sudden something might pop out. It could be in the middle of the shower. It could be in the middle of sleep. It could be any time while you're doing something else. It'll pop in and you'll be like, oh, that's what I can do. And so it's
and
almost
then
like
you're
you
off to the
have
races, right?
exactly, exactly. It's almost like you have two brains going at the
Yeah,
same time. They're
yeah.
both on a marathon and they're just going, go, 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 go. Okay. That's a great part of it. But at the same time, if you don't know how to harness that, it can be something that's a struggle. So the biggest thing that I work with is trying to learn the processes and the systems for each person.
Mm,
Because what works for me with my ADHD doesn't necessarily work for my husband or my kids or my clients. It's let's look at how your brain is working, how your brain is processing, and let's work with that. But yet at the same time, some of the struggles that we do have is we want to do everything.
mm.
We are so curious. We want to do everything. I want to learn to play the guitar. I want to learn photograph or photography. I want to learn to be able to, do this business, do that business, learn a new language. And so we're so excited to do everything and we start it all and then we overwhelm ourselves.
Mm,
And so there's a lot of, okay, well, let's kind of slow that pace down because we are inside of our head running at full speed all the
yeah,
time,
yeah.
which then can also create fatigue and create that brain fog and create exhaustion that we don't even realize we
Oh, okay. So wait a minute. So you're saying that rapid thoughts and stuff like that creates brain fog? I didn't know that.
it can, yes. So
Oh,
here's how
wow.
it's actually a physical and a mental thing going at the same time.
Okay.
So when we are processing things, our brain is using glucose.
Mm,
So the glucose in our body, it's processing as quick as it can, but our brain uses the glucose. So if we are doing a lot of processing and we're not feeding our body, we deplete it, which then means our brain is not getting enough. So it's almost like as if you're running on 1 hour of sleep.
mm,
And you create that within yourself because you're just doing a lot of brain work. So when we look at even kids in school, by the end of the day, they're a little ornery. Well, if they're dealing with ADHD, of course they're ornery. Of course they're going to come home and be starving. And of course they're going to want the sweets. They're going to want the candy. They're going to want the cakes and things like that to add to the fact of being able to have that glucose getting back in their brain to be able to do the homework or do the chores or do whatever it is that they need to do. So
So when they're starving, when their brains are starving for that glucose, what's something that can be given to the kids instead of, like, in spite of not wanting to give? And I'm assuming this is for adults too. It's not just children. I mean, what would
yes,
be good to feed yourself or feed your brain at that time that wouldn't be harmful?
um, that's really a great question
Mm,
because a lot of people assume, well, let's just have candy. We'll get that quick fix. We'll get that quick thing that we need to be able to get the gears running again.
mm,
And that's great if like it's really, really depleted. Just a little bit though. And then add it to things that are complex carbohydrates.
mm,
So when somebody comes home and eats a bunch of candy, what they're going to do is they're going to throw that glucose in their brain, but the brain's going to use it really fast as well as the body. And then you're going to have a crash, which makes it even worse. You're going to have more brain fog, more frustration, less processing. So getting things like fruit, getting things that just won't process through the system really fast.
mm, mm.
So a fruit thing or even a complex carbohydrate meal, like if you had, I mean, a burrito, because you've got
Oh,
good carbs in that, but you also have a little bit of the sugars from the
yeah.
or tortillas. So that's one of
So,
the things that my
okay.
son comes home and eats. He'll eat like two or three burritos and then go do his homework.
That's good advice. Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I would have never put those two together either, but the way you explained it, I understand how that would
Mhm.
make sense. And I think it would probably calm a lot of things that are going on in the body when you have the complex thoughts.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay. So we're doing so good so far. This is amazing. Like I'm like, this is fun. It's fun just to sit down and just chat, and
Mhm.
because this is what God is calling you to do. That's what really gets me really riled up about this stuff and so excited is that y- when you're speaking to someone who is speaking from their genius, that genius that God has placed in them, that thing that they're set to
Right.
put out into the world. And so some people it's a lifetime, and for some people it's a season, right? So I always like to say, so in this season, this is what He's got you doing, and He's equipped
Mhm.
you with everything you need to know to share with other people so that they reap the benefits of these things that He's given you. So, and I love in the word it talks about, He's turning things that are happening and going on for you. He's working them out for good.
He is.
So yes, you have the symptoms or the
Mhm.
diagnosis of ADHD, but he's using it and working it out for
Absolutely.
good because you're helping so many families
Mhm.
through the process. So I think it's beautiful. And I'm telling you, there are so many of us. Um, Even if you're not diagnosed with ADHD, some of the things that you said for even the
Mhm.
normal brain are just good to do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
absolutely.
good to do. I was thinking about what you just said about, taking that brain to slow your brain down.
Mhm.
And one way that I do that is in the morning by just having that quiet time. I've started to just empty my head, not necessarily meditating, but
Mhm.
I may take one piece of the word or something like that and ask God a question or something like that and just silence. I try to make 30 minutes, but I don't always make 30 minutes. But
Uh-huh.
I'm noticing that my brain is calming down more and
Mhm.
more, and I have less anxiety throughout the day when I'm hit with different things that I have to do. So those are good things to do for any kind of brain, right? Because we're in this
Well,
society. Yeah,
I will tell you that that is great for a brain that doesn't have all the conversations going on in their head.
yeah,
Because with ADHD brain, there's conversations all the time. So
yes.
even though I'm talking to you right now, I've got two or three other conversations going on in my head. So
Oh,
when you say
wow.
quiet the brain, that is one of the most difficult things for someone that deals with ADHD to
Mm,
do.
mm.
So, and it was something that I always avoided because it was like you almost go into it, like you said, you go in, you're able to clear your mind, you're able to relax and bring it down and be able to just, right? With an ADHD mind, it's like they've got a whole platoon talking all the time. A whole
Okay.
platoon. And they may not all be talking, but there's
Mhm,
all the noise all the time going on within our brain. And somebody said to me once, how do you ever get them to stop talking? And I said,
mhm,
well, I don't know that I ever get them to stop talking, but I try. And this is how I try.
mm,
And I tell them, you know what? You sit them all down,
mm.
like you're sitting at a round table like King Arthur did, and you say, look, you guys all have an opinion, and that's fine. But right now it's mine. I'm the one in charge right now, and you all can have your opinion in a minute. And of
I
course,
love
what
that.
a minute is. So that minute could be like literally a minute or 3 hours later.
Yes.
So it still is,
Mm,
it's still able to, settle them down a little bit. But that is something that is a difficult thing to do, to just
mm.
to kind of sit and relax. An ADHD person, when they relax, they're doing something. That's how they relax.
Oh.
Unless they are in crash and burn. If they're in crash and burn mode or burnout mode, they stop everything. Okay. Their mind will still be going, right? But they'll stop doing things. So when you see one that's like kind of crash and burn and they're just Netflix binging
Mhm.
hours upon hours upon hours, it's because watching that is having their mind stop thinking and just start to allow that to just come down, that high level of emotion or anxiety to just kind of bring it down.
Mm.
So it's a very interesting concept when somebody says, Shay, just go relax. I'm like, I don't know how, it's almost like a
Yeah.
feeling, because everybody tells you to relax, but you're like, I don't know how to relax. I don't know how to relax. You have to find what works for you. For me, it's sitting down, watching something so that my brain can stop talking, and I'm crocheting. So my hands are busy. So for people with
Ah,
ADHD, having the two things going, it's a relaxing feeling.
mm.
Whereas other people, it's like, I don't want to do anything. I want to just be left alone, right? So there's that. It's just another contrast that we don't realize that goes on between whether they're ADHD or not.
I didn't know that you crocheted. That's really interesting. Did you see the young lady? Have you seen her? She's on a bit on all over the internet, who crocheted um, her prom dress and
I
wore it.
did not, but I have seen a few other
Oh, it
ones
was
weird.
gorgeous. I'm like, I didn't
I'm not
know that
surprised.
crocheting could do that. Now she's got a whole business doing
Oh,
that.
wow.
And I went to her website and I'm like, one dress was like $3,800. And I'm like, but people are buying them like hotcakes. It's amazing. So,
It crocheting is it's the only way it can be done is by hand. There's no
hmm,
machine out there that can crochet. So if you have somebody crocheting something, it is all original as far as like their technique. So
I
it's
love
fun. I
that.
enjoy doing it. I make bunnies and I sell those. And I've even started making where they're a little bit heavier. So, because people that have anxiety, sometimes that heaviness feels good and calming for them. And
Hmm.
so that's why I started doing it. So it's a little bit heavier. So they have that. It's almost like their own emotional support in a way.
Oh, okay. That's good to
Yeah.
know. That's really good to know. Okay. So, where else do we want to go with this conversation? I'm wondering. Holy Spirit. I'm asking the Holy Spirit right now where he wants to go.
Okay.
So, I keep hearing the word increase.
Hmm.
So, how can someone with ADHD increase their potential for success in
Hmm.
business?
Okay. That is something that has to be learned
Mhm.
because of the distractions and because of the things that are just kind of going on. The thing I don't like is the word ADHD itself because it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Mhm.
So if you don't have a hyperactivity, like your body is being hyper or whatever, then you're like, how can that be? Or if you're not distracted all the time, how can it be? But saying deficit really isn't attention deficit. The real thing is it's attention overstimulation because there's so many things that are coming in and our brain is having to discern it.
Mm.
So it's learning how to see all this overload that you deal with all the time and say, okay, this one's important. This one I can shut out. This one I can actually remove from my environment. And being able to look at it in a perspective of it's not about you having an issue or a problem. It's about looking at it and saying, what would increase my focus? Okay. What would help me to be able to be more successful? And looking at it in that frame. There are simple techniques that help people all the time that they may or may not be aware of, such as do you listen to music while you're doing something? Do you find that you're more productive doing that?
Mm.
Okay, great. That works. Doesn't work all the time. Okay, so then let's look at your music. What kind of music are you using? What
Mm.
type of things are you listening to? Are you listening to music that has a lot of words? Do you need music that doesn't have any words? Do you need a specific kind of music like bilateral music, which if you don't know what that is, it's where the music bounces back and forth from one ear to the other. So if you have headphones
Oh.
on, it'll be a little louder in this ear and then go to this ear. So it's kind of like this wave of sound going back and forth, which actually engages both sides of the brain, which then settles the brain down, which then gives you attention. As an example, when I was working on my free giveaway, I was struggling with the fact of trying to just focus on it because we have dogs barking in our house and we've got kids still here and they're wanting
Mm.
attention. So I put the music in headphones just so that I didn't have to hear anything else. And I got more work done in 2 hours than I was able to do the whole previous week.
Oh, I love that.
So you just find what your techniques are and then you hone in on those and you keep those in your toolbox. So you just
Now,
have
do
this
you
little
do this
box.
bilateral thing? Is that how you listen to your music? You do? Okay.
Yeah, when
I've
I
never heard
can.
of that. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
It's
Hmm.
really interesting. It's called 8D audio and bilateral music. So it just kind of takes the music and flows it back and forth. Now, for people that do not have ADHD, it may be okay for them or it may irritate them.
Hmm.
Just because it's like, oh my gosh, just stay on both ears, be stereo, right? And
Yeah.
whereas we're with ADHD, we're like, yeah, let's go with the flow.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And I love the thing that I want to talk about too is I love you know being a believer doesn't mean that we go without issues or things that we have to deal with in life. And sometimes those things God can take away um uh with what they call deliverance, what we call
Mhm.
deliverance.
Right.
And just you go get up, go prayer, and then it's gone. And then sometimes he uses the body of Christ and the things that we have equipped ourselves with in this world. And I had to learn that the hard way. Um, I had an incident many years ago where I was really believing God to heal me for something. And I felt like I was just going to get this miraculous healing from God. And I was so convinced on that that I almost died. I
Mhm.
almost died until by the grace of God, I went into the hospital, went into surgery. And I remember waking up from the surgery and looking across the room when they took me to my room, and there was a cross on the wall across, and it was like it just lit up and twinkled. And
Mhm.
I felt like the Lord telling me, this is my place, and I brought you here. Like
Mhm.
this is actually my hospital. And what he was speaking to my soul was, I
Mhm.
have all different kinds of ways to
Yep.
accomplish what I need to accomplish, right?
Mhm.
So just because I didn't heal you, you didn't get healed at some, prayer service, or you didn't go
Right.
touch the hem of somebody's garment, doesn't mean that
Mhm.
I wasn't in this, and doesn't mean that I
Oh,
didn't walk this
absolutely.
out and have purpose and planning for it all. And I
Mhm.
begin to think, even the mere fact that we have the technology and the things that we can do in surgery are God's little miracles for us as well.
Mhm.
So anyway, I just
Absolutely.
I love that, and which is why what you do is so necessary. Also, some things he just wants us to do together. He's put that gift in you so that you can be an extension of him and to help other people, right?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Well,
I
and it brings me back to just a couple of years ago. So like I had said before, we were doing really well with me and my ADHD. I was being successful, I was functioning, I had a job, I was doing really well at my job, which is not uncommon for those that can figure out how to handle it, right? And then I had a car accident. Now, it wasn't a major car accident, but it was a car accident that caused a concussion. And we have residual issues from that concussion. And probably about 6 months into it, I was frustrated. I was beyond upset because for the same reason. Why won't you heal me? Why won't you take this away from me? Why do I have to deal with this again? Because I'm like, I
Mm,
already figured it out once. Why do I have to do it again? Right.
yes.
And, I was sitting in my office and I thought, I'm just so done. I'm so tired of this. And I was a bookkeeper at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm taking 15 minutes to scroll. I'm going to play. And I was running through some things on social media and I found an interview. It was really interesting because it was on America's Got Talent, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is just going to be somebody singing. It'll be a nice, uplifting song. Okay. But I got so much more out of it because it was a young lady who was on stage, and you could tell by her appearance that she had gone through something really hard. Like she was very, very thin, her hair was really, really short. And so they brought it up and they said,
Is this Songbird?
this is Night Birdie. Yes.
Nightbird, Nightbird, yes.
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 And I loved what she said. And in fact, what she said on that stage affected everything in my mind at that moment. It took everything and just kind of laid it in place. But when he said to her, what are your chances for survival with this cancer? And she said 2%. And they're like, how are you dealing with that? And she said, you know what? 2% is not 0%. So I'm holding on to that 2%. And they're like, how
Mm.
are you dealing with this? This is so hard. And I pulled it up really quick because I wanted to read it exactly like she said. She said, I am much more than the bad things that have happened to me. That was the first thing. And I'm like, oh, I really need to listen. And then the second thing she said, you can't wait until life isn't hard anymore until you decide to be happy. And I
Mm.
thought, oh, I don't have to be going through all the hardship of the concussion. The concussion was a thing that I'm dealing with. And so I was able to step back and say, okay, God, what do you want me to do in this? And instead of looking at it like it was a hardship, I looked at it like, okay, it's a challenge. So what can I learn in this challenge to benefit me, my family, and whoever else it is that you want me to? And because of her, and because of that statement, and she had since passed, but because of those things, those three statements, it changed the perspective of my life. It
Oh,
changed the way I looked at ADHD. Instead of looking at it like, oh, this is such a hardship on me. This concussion is terrible. And it is. Don't get me wrong. There are days where I just want to crawl into bed and pull the blanket over my head and say, I'm done. But on those days, those words go back through my head. You don't have to wait for things to be better to be happy. So
oh.
find the happy within, find the joy within the hardship. And that phrase has prompted me through the last 2.5 years since that happened to take the thing that happened to me and take that and turn it into something that I can bless other people with. And when people come to me, and this is one of the things I want people to hear very clearly, when they come to me and they say, if you would have more faith, that would be gone. I can now stand and say, I have more faith than you understand, and I'm doing God's work with the thing He has blessed me with, because there are many blessings that have come out of this concussion.
Mm. I love that. Oh wow, I love that. That was pregnant with so much goodness inside of there. Because like I know who Songbird is, a Nightbird. I don't know why I keep calling her Songbird, but I know I saw that and it was very inspirational. And it what how it's so important for us
Mhm.
to answer our calling. Had she said, I have cancer, right? And
Mhm.
and likely so, I have cancer. She didn't have to get up on stage. She didn't have to do what she did and still
No.
work and walk in her gifting. Um, she could have said, I'm dying because that's what she said on the stage. She goes, I'm literally dying. Her body was literally giving up. There's a 2% chance, but she wasn't going to let go until
Mm-mm.
it was actually time. You wouldn't have got that gift. I got a gift from her when just in listening to her. And that is oh gosh, that is why I doing this show because
Mhm.
your vision, that kingdom visionary thing, it matters what you do.
Oh,
And I love
absolutely.
what you said, doing it in spite of just because you have things going on, just because you have deficiencies, just because you have, you know, good or bad stuff going on, your kids are in school right now or whatever it is, that's
Right.
not an excuse. That's not an excuse to not go out and fulfill your calling, whatever God is having you to do
Absolutely.
in that
And
hour. I love that.
her song, It's Okay. That's
Oh,
the song that she sang on that when she did
mm,
that. And so she said all of that, and then she sang that song. And I'm sitting in my office at work bawling,
mm.
tears coming down my face. I mean, we're not talking about the little cry. We're talking about the ugly
I
cry,
would cry.
the ugly cry.
Yes.
And I'm working in a building. I'm the only female. Okay. So I'm sitting,
Really?
yeah, I
Oh.
was the only female working there.
Mm,
And I'm sitting there and I'm like casually getting up and close the door because I'm thinking, I do not want them seeing me like this because they already see me crying most of the time anyway, because the
mhm,
emotional regulation side from the concussion on top of ADHD. So
mm,
there's a double whammy. But to remind myself, it's okay. It's all okay.
mm,
Everything's okay, You got a lot of hardship on your plate right now. That's okay. You can still be happy. And you know what? When I had that mindset change, even through the hardships of the last couple of years of my health, and on top of it, our business closing,
mm,
we can laugh, we can have fun, There is more laughter and love in this home than I can even tell you. We have joy. We look for the joy every day. And if you can do that and look for the humor, the laughter, the joy, that's when the opportunities come
I
because
love
you're
what you're saying
swinging.
about during the season, your business closing, that your husband had had for 30 years. But what I see or what I've seen is that what the Lord is doing is he's ignited something else. So he didn't just leave you closing something and
Right.
not give you something. And this thing, this kind of, I think, mantle that you're holding, Shay, is just like huge. Because I believe, and I'm just speaking it into existence, and I know you're already doing that. So I'm just like, it's just gonna increase exponentially because of your heart, because of your understanding, because of the wisdom that God has put in you to really kind of actually help people, right? And we've all got
Mhm.
to do our part. Um,
Right.
but I know that he closed one door and opened another one that you guys are, soaring in, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just, yeah, it's just amazing what he does when we let go. Was there a piece of you guys that had to let go? You know what I'm saying?
Of
Like,
course.
yes, that,
Of
you
course.
know,
We probably should have closed the business a year before that, maybe even further back than that. Um, but it wasn't my business to do. I couldn't walk in there and be like, honey, close the business
mm,
because it was his baby. You just don't mess
yeah,
with the husband's business babies. You
yes,
just let them
yes.
do what they need to do. But during that, I was taking that time to learn, that time to say, okay, what can I start preparing myself for the next step? Because what happened is during this period of time, we also realized that I could no longer do my own profession. So, like
Mm,
I said, I was a bookkeeper and I still worked as a bookkeeper, but I was at his company as a bookkeeper. So that allowed me a lot of latitude, a lot of flexibility for when I'm having the headaches and stuff. I could say I'm done and go do something else or go
mm,
home and rest. But when you close your business and that flexibility goes away, and a lot of things kind of just went away because I tried to go get a job afterwards because I'm like, oh, I'll just get a part-time job. I'll be able to handle it. And I couldn't. In 3 days of training, I would get off of the computer because it was online and I would sob
oh,
because I could not process what they were telling me. I could not understand it. And one thing with ADHD, the more stressed you are, the worse it can feel, or it can
mm,
be symptoms. And so because of all the stress from the closing of the business and the stress from watching my husband and his frustrations and struggle, then trying to do another job and relearning a lot of things, it was way over the top.
mm,
And so I
yeah,
had to be willing to say, okay, this is where my parameter is. This is what I'm trying to do, but this is not my job anymore. This is not who I'm supposed to be right now. I'm not supposed to be the bookkeeper anymore.
yeah.
That to be put on the shelf and said, that was a great while it lasted. What do you need from me, Lord? And this last year has been a real, true eye-opening of understanding faith and
Mm,
really
I
walking in
love
that
that.
faith. So, and you really have to when you're dealing with your symptoms, there's some times where you just got to step out on that
Mm,
cliff and be like, okay, and this is what my husband says, you're going to step on a cliff, and you're going to stand there and you're going to take a step off, and you're either going to step onto solid ground because God's going to provide it, or he's going
mm.
to teach you how to fly.
Amen. Amen. I love that. And I love the fact that actually what he did was he just took the thing that you guys had in the background because you've been doing this coaching and all this stuff for many years, on the back of,
Mhm.
having that business. So he just took that thing. He says, I'm just gonna flip it because this is where I want you guys in this season. So it's like
Right, right.
you already had the background and the
Mhm.
experience and all that. I mean, you guys were helping so many people just through that. And God said, you know what, we're going to increase that because, and I'm like, it's so perfect because the kingdom needs it right now. The kingdom needs what you
Yes.
have right now. He has told me there are going to be so many people coming out of the woodworks to with their gifts, their talents, their purposes in the kingdom.
Hmm.
Um, Things that have been the words I'm getting is revive and resurrection, right? They're
Yes.
going to be revived and resurrected. Those things that have been dormant for so long and so
Hmm.
many people. And we're going to need people like Shaye Woodward to help navigate through these kinds of things, because being in business for yourself is high stress in itself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It just is. I mean, and that will never go away. I don't care what anybody says. Because you just develop new things that could potentially be a worry. Even when your business is running well, the worry is it's not starting to go well. So how do I stay where I am, right? Or
Yeah.
how do I go to the next level, right? So there's a
Right.
worry in that, or you got a new slew of things, and now I've got a bunch of employees. It's like the new thing is, how do we keep them happy? How do we
Mhm.
keep them,
Right.
retained? How do we keep them productive? So
Mhm.
there's always a new a new level of stuff that you have to deal
Right.
with in
Well,
entrepreneurship. Yeah.
and if you can teach the person who is dealing with those ADHD characteristics, if you can teach them how to understand that their brain is made to solve problems.
Mm,
That's why some people get super hyper focused. It's because they just love and they're passionate in what it is. And then if they don't understand that their brain is actually made to solve problems, then they don't realize that when they hit that wall, it's not a stop. It's a, oh, how can I see around the wall to get to the other side? And what out of the normal things can I do to get there?
okay.
So
I
it's a
love
really
that.
interesting, fun aspect to do it.
I love that. I've been taking notes as we as we've been, yeah, so there's been some good juicy stuff in here. So, okay. So I think we are coming up on the hour.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it's been so much fun, and we've had these conversations not on the show before, not in this much depth though. So I learned a lot today, actually. And I'm just so happy that you guys are doing what you're doing now. And you're just on this mission to change so many lives with this through this. So but I do think you have a gift for my people today, don't you?
I do. I
Okay.
have a little workbook that I
Thank
created.
you.
I know. I'm so excited for it. I'm excited because one thing that we don't realize is there's so many lies. There's so many lies about what ADHD is, or the feelings or thoughts that people believe. So I created the workbook to be able to show them, here's some lies, but here's some truths. And
Hmm.
then here's some questions you can ask yourself, just a couple of short questions, and then create your own new truth. So by the time they go through that, there's the 5 top areas in which we have issues that we struggle with ADHD, like time management and organization, procrastination and motivation. I mean, that's a big one because we tend to procrastinate till like the deadline's right there, and then we just jump right on it and get it done. And some people work better that way, so that's why they do it that way. But there's also like the focus and concentration, the emotional regulation, and how do we deal with it? Okay. Now I don't have like all the how-tos in there because it wouldn't be a short workbook then. It'd be like a solid huge book.
Yes, yes, yes.
It'd take forever to get through it.
Yes.
And they don't have the attention span to get through it anyway because it would be too long. But it's just a short little thing to help people to say, okay, oh yeah, I resonate with that lie. What can I
Mm.
do? Oh, here's a truth that I can believe. And then start
Oh,
changing the mindset to it. And then if they want to go deeper or whatever, then they can reach out to you or me and we can go a little deeper and see what we can do. It'd be
yes,
fun.
of course. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for that for my people. Okay, so how can they get a hold of the download? Is there a link?
There will be a link.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, we are getting it set up on our
Mm-hmm.
website,
Okay.
winningthehumanrace.com.
Okay,
And
say that again.
winningthehumanrace.com, it's like the
Okay.
same name as the title of the book. And also, if they don't have a capability doing that, they can just reach out to you or to me,
Okay.
and
Well,
we will get it done.
this one it'll be a few weeks out before this one airs anyway, and you're gonna have that. You said you're gonna have it up and running by
We
next
should
week
have it
anyway.
up
So
and
yes,
running.
so it'll
Mhm.
be so winning the human race, right?
.com.
.com, and they can go and download the workbook there. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, I'm
Thank you
so
so
excited
much.
for
Yeah.
it.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So here we have it, another wonderful kingdom-minded woman who is setting the world ablaze with her gifts and her talents. This is a phenomenal thing that we're doing here, that we're connecting together. And
Absolutely.
it's so important that we know who one another are and that we support each other in this journey. And I'm so thankful. Thank you, Shaye, for coming and blessing us with
Oh,
your
thank you.
knowledge. Yeah, and all that you're bringing to the table. So that's it. Is there any last minute thing, anything last you want to leave with the audience, or you good?
I would say one more thing to remember is that you're not broken. You're
Hmm.
not broken. You are made the way that you are made because you have such unique talents, unique things within inside you so that you can create what you need to create here. So
Hmm.
just remember, you're not broken. What you are is a unique person to create.
Ah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, I do have one last question for you, Shaye.
Sure. Mhm.
Um, will you be a part of our Kingdom Visionary Club? All you have to do
Ooh,
is say yes.
I would love
Because
to. Sounds fun.
yes, I'm like, we're just gonna call ourselves the Kingdom Visionary Club because it's like, and no attachment to that, just
Mhm.
people who are focused and they know that they want to build in the marketplace for the kingdom of God. So yeah,
Yes,
we
yes.
officially debut a Kingdom Visionary Club member. Yes, thank you.
Hey!
So yeah. Thank you, dear. All right. So thank you guys for listening. Until next time, make it a great life. And remember to always protect and put your vision out there in the world. Have a great day.